You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including Scene of the Crime, The Murder in My Family, 3 Men and a Mystery, Malice, and DNA ID. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to look for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Episode 22, Alexandria Lowitzer. In April 2010, Alexandria Lowitzer, or Allie as she was known, was 16 years old and living with her mother Joanne and older brother Mason in Spring, Texas. Allie was a typical teen girl, a sophomore at Spring High School, where she was involved in a lot of activities. She was in the Girl Scouts, played the flute, was the catcher on the softball team, was involved in the choir, and took advanced art classes. Allie loved to draw and paint and spent hours at a time in her room creating works of art while she listened to music. But she also had friends, a newish boyfriend, and was a prolific texter, exchanging 4,000 texts a month with her friends on average in the few months since she'd gotten her new phone. Allie had recently started a part-time job at a Burger Barn restaurant on Cypresswood Drive. This was located in a strip mall with a few other stores across the road from a McDonald's and a Circle K on the corner of Cypresswood and Trishwig Road. In other words, this was in a pretty busy commercial area. Allie and her family lived in a residential neighborhood that abutted it, on Low Ridge Road, between 1/4 and a half mile from the Burger Barn. On Monday, April 26, 2010, Allie went to school as usual. She didn't drive yet, and her mom worked, so Allie took the school bus to and from Spring High School. At the end of the school day, Allie called her mom at work to ask permission to walk to the Burger Barn after getting off the bus. She said she had a paycheck she wanted to pick up, and she might even try to pick up a shift for a couple of hours. If Allie needed to get to work when her mom was at work, her grandmother would usually drive her, but she was at an appointment on this particular day. Allie persisted, and her mom said it would be okay, and for Allie to let her know when to pick her up. Allie was captured on the school's surveillance camera at 2:25 p.m. leaving the school. She boarded her bus home and is visible for the entire bus ride on footage captured by the bus's cameras. When the bus arrived at her stop, 3 doors down from her home, she disembarked along with some boys who shared the same stop at Low Ridge Road and Naughty Post Road. The boys later said that Allie was on her phone as she stood on the corner. This was normal for Allie, who, as I said, was an avid texter. The boys later reported that Allie had walked in the direction of the Burger Barn area and away from the direction of her house. Allie sent a text message to a male friend named Jay at 2:57 p.m., making plans to hang out later that night. And that was the last time anyone is known to have heard from Allie Lowitzer. Joanne arrived home from work around 5:30. Allie wasn't home, but since Joanne knew that she had been heading to work, she didn't worry. Not until 7 rolled around and there was no word from her daughter did she start to become concerned. Allie wasn't responding to her mother's texts. By 8, Joanne was very anxious, and knowing the Burger Barn closed at 9, she got in the car and drove over there before that time. When she arrived, she was horrified to see that the place was closed, lights off, doors locked. Allie was nowhere to be seen. You can imagine what happened next as Joanne frantically contacted friends and family to try to find Allie. It was simply unheard of for no one to have heard from Allie via text, and for her not to answer her texts and calls. Joanne called her husband John, the two had recently divorced, and the two of them, joined by Mason, Allie's older brother, started calling around to Allie's friends and her friend Jay, and checking with parents of the kids they knew Allie knew. They drove around town looking for her in the places they knew she liked to go and scanning the neighborhood. There was nothing. After a while, they called the police around 11 p.m. The Spring PD sent an officer out who glanced in Allie's room and then told the family to call the police station the next day when Allie came home. The officer was dismissive of the girl being missing and assumed she had left of her own accord, despite the Lowitzers telling her that that was not Allie. Their daughter was a bit of a homebody, preferring to have friends come to her house than going to the homes of others. She had no reason to leave and, in fact, had things she was excited for that were happening soon, like getting her braces off, taking driver's ed, taking a summer art class at a local college, a softball tournament, and an Alice in Wonderland-themed party she had planned for her best friend's birthday to take place that coming weekend. And if the officer had taken the time to look a little more thoroughly in Allie's room, she would have seen that what Joanne was telling her was true. Allie had left all of her things behind. Her room was just as she had left it when she boarded the school bus that morning. Things that Allie valued, such as her clothes, makeup, purse containing money, jewelry, and all-important cell phone charger were all sitting in plain sight. The only thing missing was her rainbow-checked backpack that she was seen with on the school bus that afternoon. The Lowitzers felt, and still feel strongly, that Allie did not intend to leave permanently that day. The next day, the family started doing some sleuthing on their own. They found out that Allie had never showed up at the Burger Barn the evening before. She did have her first paycheck there waiting for her, but it was still sitting there. They confirmed that she had gotten off the school bus and started walking, but could not figure out where she had gone after that. They noted that her cell phone stopped all activity after that last 2:57 p.m. text. There were no more pings showing the phone's location after that time. This was Allie's first phone, and it had GPS so her mom could see where she was. But after that last text, the phone went off the network and never came back on, so it was not traceable. None of her friends had heard from her or knew where she was. Jay, the male friend Allie had texted at 2:57, said he had no idea what had happened to her either. And Allie had not made any new entries on her Facebook or MySpace pages. But rather than heeding all of these ominous signs, police categorized Allie as a runaway. The family was adamant that this was not the case, but they were left largely to their own devices to try to figure out what had happened to their daughter. Joanne pulled all of Allie's phone records and contacted the people that she could see who Allie had been texting and calling. Also, right after Allie went missing, John Lowitzer went to the Shell station that was on the corner of Treishwig Road, catty corner from the Burger Barn. This was the only business with video cameras trained at the street. He managed to get a copy of the video surveillance footage, and the family scanned it for signs of Allie. She never appeared on the footage at the intersection she would have had to pass through to get to her place of employment. The family turned the tape over to the Harris County Runaway Division, but they lost the video, the only copy. The Lowitzers also learned that Allie's bank account, which had a little money in it, has never been accessed. Frustrated with police stonewalling, the Lowitzers contacted a local victims advocacy and recovery nonprofit group called the Laura Recovery Center. This is a group that assists families in recovering abduction victims and teaches kidnapping prevention. It is named after Laura Kate Smither, who was abducted and murdered near her home in Friendswood, Texas in 1997 at age 12. Her murderer has never been caught. I won't get into all the search efforts that were spearheaded by representatives of the Laura Center on behalf of the Lowitzers, but suffice it to say that there were 2 solid weeks of incredibly exhaustive and thorough searches by foot, dog teams, ATVs, boats, and riders on horseback. Allie's parents knocked on doors and handed out flyers and posted on social media and worked with NCMEC. They retraced the route she would have taken on foot that day, from the bus stop along Treishwig Road toward Burger Barn. Not a trace of Allie has ever been found. When her 18th birthday came and went, her case was recategorized as a missing person, and police have met with, interviewed, polygraphed, and ruled out a number of people, including friends of Allie's and the owner and some employees of Burger Barn, but they have come up empty. There have been a few intriguing leads over the years. One PI gathered tips that witnesses had seen a white truck pulled over along Allie's presumed walking route. One witness even managed to remember a few numbers on the license plate. According to the PI, the vehicle may have belonged to Brandon Scott Laverne, a killer of 2 women in nearby Louisiana. He had relatives in the Spring, Texas area, but he was cleared because he had an alibi and the lead fizzled out. Another PI gathered information that Allie had been trafficked and was at a stash house in Ohio, but this didn't pan out either. The Lowitzer family traveled to Ohio to find this girl, but she was a lookalike, not Allie. And the same PI found some indication that someone had logged into Allie's email account from somewhere in Las Vegas, but again, this went nowhere. The case went cold. Over the years, anxious to keep the spotlight on her daughter's case, Joanne pushed to have February 3rd, Allie's birthday, declared Houston's annual Missing Person Day. And then, in 2017, Texas lawmakers passed legislation to make April 26th, the day Allie went missing in 2010, Texas Missing Persons Day. This was a great accomplishment for Joanne, but, of course, it does not bring her daughter back. 2020 marked 10 years since Allie's disappearance. Joanne still lives in the same house where the family lived when Allie vanished, and Allie's room is still waiting for her. Joanne and John might be divorced, but they still work together toward finding their daughter. They firmly believe that Allie was abducted. A $25,000 reward for information still stands. Alexandria Joy Lowitzer was last seen wearing a white t-shirt or spaghetti strap top, a gray hooded zip-up sweatshirt, black and white checkered skinny jeans, and black sneakers. She had with her a blue LG AT&T cellular phone and a multicolored checkered backpack with a dark strap. Her natural brown hair was dyed dark red. She has blue eyes, ear and nose piercings, and braces on her teeth. Allie is 5'2" and 145 pounds. She goes by the nicknames Allie, Alex, or AJ. Anyone with information regarding Allie's case is urged to call the Harris County Sheriff's Office at 713-967-5810. Mike Morford sat down with Allie Lowitzer's mom, Joanne, to talk about her daughter's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Joanne. Thanks for coming on to talk about Allie's case with us.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I hope we can bring some attention to this case for your family. Tell us a little bit about Allie and what was going on in her life around the time before she went missing.
Well, Allie's life, for a typical 16-year-old girl, I guess it was going okay. Let's see, she went missing in April. So the past Christmas, she had gotten her very first cell phone. She was playing softball. She was in the choir at school. She had a brand new boyfriend in April. Everything seemed to be going okay.
It sounds like life was pretty normal then, doing all the stuff that someone her age would typically be doing.
Yes, definitely. She went to school and had her, activities, and, it was, I believe it was going good for her.
Looking back, was there anything leading up to her disappearance that was out of sync or looking back now, doesn't look right, or was there literally no warning signs that anything would happen to her?
Well, there wasn't any warning signs, but, being a teenage girl, went through, some different, I don't know if you call them hardships or not, but, she went through bullying at school and on the bus at the fall in school. And, she got through that, and we believe that had stopped. She's had, a breakup with her first boyfriend at the beginning of that semester as well. And, the year before that, me and her dad had split up. So everything that comes along with, parents splitting up. But, we all worked on it, as a family and had some counseling and things were going good.
And no things that were such an issue for her that she seemed like she might want to run away or any of that kind of stuff?
No, Allie had never run away before. Anytime that there may have been an argument or disagreement, she wasn't the type of kid that would say, well, I'm just going to run away, or, it wasn't even on the table, at any time in her life to, threaten us, that she was going to run away.
So that's not something that would have gone through your mind?
Absolutely not, no.
And can you walk us through the day Allie disappeared, April 26, 2010? I guess during that day, how it unfolded, if you can just sort of walk us through that, and also at what point you realized that she was missing.
Well, it was a Monday. A typical Monday, she had to get up and go to school. I had to get up and go to work. And it wasn't so untypical that I didn't actually lay eyes on her, on a day like that. I did, go in her room and wake her up. And, once I heard her, mustering around and showering and stuff like that, I continued to get ready for work. And she left for the bus stop before I left for work, which was very typical. And throughout the school day, she had texted me and called me, a few times. And, the story kind of changed a little bit. She was going to stay after school to work on a project. And one of her friends was going to give her a ride home. And then that changed where that wasn't going to work out. So she was just going to ride the bus home. And then that changed. Well, it didn't really change, but she, after that, she had asked if she could walk to work to pick up her paycheck. And I didn't like the idea of her walking to work, even though it was just a really short walk. It was less than a quarter of a mile from our house. She had never walked to work before. Her grandmother, my mom, was usually here at the house when Allie would get off the school bus every day, but my mom wasn't able to be here that day. So, Allie being told that was insistent, the typical, kid wanting their way. She really wanted to go up to the burger barn and see if she could get paid and pick up a shift. And, after her begging and pleading several times and text messages and a phone call, I reluctantly gave in, after her, saying things like, Mom, I'll be okay. I'll let you know when I get there, stuff like that. Then, that's when I caved and I told her, okay.
And then after that, when did you find out that, hey, I think something's wrong here?
Well, I got home from work usually about 5:20 or 5:30, and she wasn't here. And, in my mind, I'm like, okay, she must be working, because it wouldn't have taken her, that long to walk up there and get her paycheck and then walk back. So I sent her a text message and I said, I guess you're working. Call me or text me and let me know when I need to come pick you up. And I didn't hear from her, which was very untypical because Allie always had her phone in hand. And, I proceeded to do things around the house, like cook dinner and stuff. And some time went by. I sent her another text. And, I said, let me know when I need to come pick you up. And I still didn't hear from her, and, the little, the little conscious, within me, said that's just very strange, why she didn't reply. And I became worried. And on the other side, I'm thinking to myself, well, don't overreact, which moms tend to do sometimes. Don't overreact. she's fine. Maybe her phone just died. And got closer to 8 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm going to text her again and say, you better answer me. You're going to be in trouble. And I think I'd even tried to call her phone. It's been 10 years now, so some of the little details are hard to remember. I believe it was 8:30 or 8:45. It was before 9 o'clock. I decided that I was just going to drive up there. And so, hey, why didn't you text me back? And so I drove up there, and the burger barn was completely closed down. All the lights were off and stuff, and nobody was there. That's really when I started to freak out.
Did you report her missing right away or go to the police right away?
It wasn't right away. I really didn't know what to do. Nothing like that had ever happened before. So I called my husband, John, and, I told him that I didn't know where Allie was and what happened, leading up to me going up to the burger barn. And, when he told me, calm down. She's probably with a friend. She probably decided to do this or that. And, all the time he's telling me that things are going to be okay, my gut is telling me that something is wrong. You don't know your kid like you do. It's hard to explain sometimes, but you're a parent. So nobody else knows your kid, like your parents. But John has always been the voice of reason, for me, and make me take a step back and think about things. And but he came home from work, and we were going over, what can we do? Where can she be? And so me and him and her brother Mason, we all kind of split up and was driving around the neighborhood. We went to stop by some of her friends' houses and by her boyfriend's house, and nobody had seen her.
And then I imagine that night, that's when you knew that you had a problem.
Yeah, I knew something was wrong, hours before anybody else did. But I think it finally sunk in when it was midnight that something was wrong. And we called Harris County, and we'd never done anything like that before. We didn't know what to do.
Take your time.
Sorry. Reliving it brings back, all of the emotions for me that we went through that night.
I want to say I can imagine, but I can't imagine being in your shoes. So I do want to touch on something you said earlier. The walk to the burger barn was a very short one. Was it about a quarter mile? Is that correct?
Yes. Me and John clocked it, and it's about a quarter of a mile.
Going back to now forward to when you do get in touch with the police, obviously you had done that kind of thing before. You hadn't opened up a missing persons report or anything. Did they take you serious right away? A lot of times I hear with younger missing people that they are like, well, they're probably just partying with their friends or something like that. Did they give you that kind of treatment, or did they take it serious right away?
It was not taken seriously at all. It was a woman deputy that came to the house, and you pretty much summed it up. She told us, she's probably out with friends, or maybe y'all had a fight and she's just out and she'll be back later. And every time I think about what she told me, it just makes me even madder, than it did that night. And I think, how dare you assume all of this? Yes, she's 16. Okay, she wears black clothes. That doesn't mean that she's going to run away. And she didn't take a report. She didn't do anything that night, absolutely nothing. And she turned to leave the house, and I said, "Well, what do we do?" And she said, "Well, call us when she comes home." And I said, "Well, what do we do if she doesn't come home?" And they said, "Well, just call us."
It's got to be a helpless feeling to the person that is there to help you start a search, is basically blowing it off.
It was devastating, because I grew up being taught that the police are there to help you, and when we were treated like that, it was very difficult to grasp. Why aren't they doing anything? I fully believe if Allie had been younger, definitely by several years, then there definitely would have been quicker action. But I think they stereotyped her by her age, definitely, and chalked her up as a runaway. And it took us until she was the legal age of 18 for them to take off that label of a runaway.
That early time when they're telling you she's probably just out with friends or something, that's the crucial time when it's the time to act, to try and find someone that's missing before the trail goes cold, so to speak.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if they would have taken it seriously, we would have, I fully believe we would have answers by now.
Wow. And
yeah,
once the Burger Barn reopened, did the police, did anyone reach out to them and say, "Hey, what happened? Did Allie come in here yesterday?" What happened in regards to that?
John went down there. John was the first one to go down there and talk to them, and they told her that they hadn't seen her that day.
So she had never shown up to collect her check.
Correct.
And did you verify, was there a check indeed waiting there for her?
I don't know if there was a physical check waiting for her. I know she was expecting to be paid. And that's kind of, with the Burger Barn, that's one of the theories that we've tossed around. The owner was just shady. Her other check, she didn't get paid what she should have gotten paid, and it bounced. So, my husband, he had gone up there twice, I believe, and made him pay her cash. And all of that money went into her savings account. So, with her having the savings account, I know she was looking forward to getting paid again, to put more money in her savings account. And that's all kids talk about when they have their very first job, is the money. And, I know she really enjoyed working there. I mean, what kid wouldn't want to flip burgers? But as far as the owner being shady, he come to find out after Allie went missing, other people approached us saying that they had also had run-ins with him, and he was abusive towards other female employees and didn't pay them as much as the male employees. And I think that's a Middle Eastern culture thing. I'm not absolutely clear on that, but he didn't treat his female employees very well. And had I known that beforehand, I definitely would have not let her work there.
You mentioned that the police didn't officially declare Allie a missing person until a long time afterwards. Did they do anything going up, till the classification was official? Did they do any searching or any investigation or anything in the 2 years between her going missing and when they finally classified her as a missing person?
Well, it took us really rattling some cages in order for them to step in and do anything. Me and John contacted a local organization called the Laura Recovery Center, because back then I didn't know what Texas Equisearch was. So with Allie being involved with Girl Scouts, somebody downtown, one of my friends from Girl Scouts told us about the Laura Recovery Center, and they stepped in and really helped us by doing searches and giving us a direction on how to look for Allie. And they were like a liaison with us and law enforcement, and it was them that really, had law enforcement step up and take it seriously. So there finally was, a missing persons report filed. We live in Harris County, so we don't have like a city police, like the city of Houston has a police. We're in a precinct. So Allie's case changed hands. It went from our local precinct, I think like 2 weeks after Allie went missing, then it got transferred over to the Harris County Runaway Division. And then I think they had the case for maybe about 2 weeks. And then it was me and John, were like, something needs to be done. We need to find her. Y'all aren't doing enough, what parents should be doing, to push for things to happen. So I guess we rattled the right cage, and, they transferred her case again up to Harris County Homicide. Had I known that really wasn't a good thing, I would definitely do that different. And I say that because if you think about how many homicide cases there are, especially in Harris County, which is the largest county in Texas, there's not enough officers in the homicide department to actively work Allie's case. Kind of where Allie's case just kind of sat on the shelf. I mean, we were able to get them to do some things at the beginning, but, her case is just sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Getting the police to actually start investigating is, I'm guessing, was a double-edged sword, maybe, because they start looking at the people closest to Allie, including you and your family. I know there's been some reports that John and Mason passed polygraphs that were given by the police, but you failed due to stress. Are these reports accurate? Did you take and fail a polygraph test?
We all failed the polygraphs. It was horrible. The questions that they ask you. They basically, I mean, just the thought of being polygraphed was nerve-wracking enough. It took me 3 times, and they basically ask you questions. Did you harm your daughter? Do you have knowledge of anyone that did harm your daughter? It's as if I wasn't upset enough that my daughter is missing. They want to waste time on polygraphing us, which, back then, I didn't know that they have to rule out the family first, and why would they, give me the time of day to explain exactly what their methods are. Of course, it being almost 11 years, I know that now. And through doing my own research, that they're always going to look at the family first and
work out from there and expand the search to other people. But I can only guess that must have been a horrible feeling and made you feel like they suspected you.
Yeah, it was. And, when I was at the office place wherever they did the polygraph, the guy was really nice, and tried his best to, put me at ease or whatever. But, that first time I couldn't stop my emotions. Well, you can see, or you can hear, I am right now. But, finally when we got through the third one, I passed it. And when I came out of his office building, the detective was out there, and I guess he had already gotten his what do you call it, the end results or whatever, and he says, "I knew you would pass it." And I just, I'm like, well, I'm glad you thought I knew I could pass it, because he knew that I didn't do anything.
It still has to be just an awful feeling. You're out there looking for your daughter, and they're looking at you, just to rule you out. But still, the feelings, it's got to be tough.
Yeah.
That you mentioned that the police never the investigation in the long haul. Just you didn't feel that it was all that it could have been, and if I'm not mistaken, you hired a private investigator on the way.
Yeah, we've had three. Yeah, we've had three private investigators. One of them was paid, and he's the one that gave the least information. The one that we had at the beginning turned out that he was giving us misinformation. One of our last detective, Amber, she's the one that kind of reviewed all of his case information and found out that he didn't do a lot of the things he was telling us he was doing.
So it sounds like that was not any kind of help. Then that was more of a further letdown for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And to find that out, 3 years after Allie went missing, that the detective wasn't doing what he was telling us he was doing was very, very disappointing.
Now, sometime in the investigation, I don't know if this is from the detectives, the police, or the private investigators, but there was some effort to look at Allie's phone communications or text or whatever. Mm-hmm. Did they find anything of interest as far as you know?
Well, I was able to see, I have AT&T, and I don't know if they have it nowadays, but I had something called a family map plan. And also, with Allie being on my cell phone account, I'm able to go through the phone numbers, and it has like the dates and the times and stuff. So I was able to print out, I couldn't tell you how many, it was like phone book size pages of her cell phone activity. And a lot of it was, the text messages between her and her friends. It didn't give the content of the text messages. It only had the phone number and the date and the time. But we contacted everybody and, confirmed, who these numbers belonged to. There was a number from Las Vegas, and I remember calling that number at the beginning, and I spoke to somebody, and it was, I'm trying to remember, it was a Las Vegas number, and when I called it, the person knew Allie and said that it was her mom's phone, or they had borrowed her mom's phone or something like that. And you don't know all of your kids' friends, especially just the ones that they see in school. So I never thought about that phone number again. I made some notes, and then that was it. Basically, we were looking for somebody that, had talked to Allie the same day. And it was with Amber. When Amber came onto the investigation, she wanted to go through the phone numbers again. And she had found another Las Vegas phone number in there from a different Las Vegas number at a different time. And we could never get any information from it. But there was another time that, Amber was able to log into Allie's emails because what I did was I went and bought a cheap cell phone and put Allie's phone number on it. And we didn't know if this would work or not. We were trying to access her Facebook and her emails. And so we went and bought a cheap phone and activated it with her phone number. And we were able to do a password reset. And so Amber was able to access Allie's email, and it was completely clean. But she was able to see that the last login IP address was in Las Vegas.
So somebody in Las Vegas logged into something on a computer into that was an account of Allie's.
Yes, they logged into her email and her email account.
Was that something the investigators, whether it be the police or the private investigator, were they able to go any further with that and track down who that might be?
Well, Amber did give everything over to the homicide department, and we never heard anything back from them. I'm not sure exactly. We never did find out, exactly who it was. But I'm not sure exactly how far a private investigator is able to go with an IP address. That's one thing I don't understand, the computer stuff.
Yeah, and another frustrating thing to have some clues there, but not be able to see where they lead or if they lead to anything at all or what. There was one report that the last call or last text that Allie sent was to a friend on the day she disappeared at 2:57 p.m. Is that correct? And was there anything telling there? Did it line up with the time frame of her going to the burger barn?
There were witnesses. There was two guys that lived down the block from us that got off the bus with Allie and said that instead of, walking down the street to come home, she stayed at the corner and she was text messaging. Or texting, and the boys continued to walk down the street and go home. So we're thinking that was the time that Allie had gotten off the school bus. She hung around just for a few seconds to send a text message, and then she exited the neighborhood. So the last text message was sent to her friend Jay, and when Jay was questioned, he said that she was asking him if he wanted to come over later.
No smoking guns of, hey, I'm running away, I'm leaving town, it's been nice knowing you, nothing like that. It was just, hey, you want to come over and hang out later on. Yeah, doesn't sound like someone that's getting ready to purposely run away, inviting someone to come over and hang out later on.
Right, exactly.
And were there any attempts made by anyone to look at surveillance footage, video of the neighborhood to see if they could track any of Allie's movements?
Well, unfortunately, back then there wasn't any Ring doorbells. But I wish there was. But the closest surveillance to us would be at the intersection that Allie would have walked. The corner of the intersection was at a Shell gas station, and John went down there himself and viewed the surveillance, and then asked them to burn him a copy. And we briefly looked at it, and we never saw Allie walk across the area of the screen that she would have, and that's what we were looking for. We were just looking for an image of Allie to prove, if she did actually walk through that intersection. And so we handed it over to it was at the time the Harris County Runaway Division, and they lost it.
Simply lost it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, and I mean, we didn't know back then that, let's make ourselves a copy, and keep it. Oh, I mean, God, if we would have known what we know now, we would have so much more. We would get things and hand it over, as quickly as we could over to law enforcement. And, for them to do nothing with it and to even lose some of it, It really pisses me off.
A little bit more about the some of the things that have been reported. I just want to try and clarify if any of them are accurate, because sometimes just because something's reported on online doesn't make it accurate. But there were some mentions that Allie had been secretly texting somebody using one of her friend's phones, and maybe ran away with that person. Is that anything to that? Any truth to that?
We don't have any proof of that. We have asked all of her friends that we can reach out to, and nobody has said anything about her ever doing that.
So we're left here with a lot of little clues, but nothing solid,
nothing
unfortunately.
Together.
Yeah, nothing that you can really grab onto and go down a certain direction. And this all happened within a quarter mile, quite possibly, of somewhere there is where the truth might lie. There's also been reported that Mason may have seen something. Did he have anything that he could add to the case that he might have witnessed that day?
Unfortunately not. I wish that he did. And there has been so many stories about that, because he refuses to talk to the media, but no, he actually, when he got into the habit that when he would hear the school bus brakes, that, he would leave the house. They had the typical brother and sister relationship at the time. They were both teenagers, but, no, he said that he was leaving. I told him that Allie didn't have her key because she left it at the house. And so I told him to leave the door open when he left. He left with a couple of his buddies. And when he came back, right before I got home, he just assumed that she was at work as well. That he left for a little while with his friends. And when he came back, we were, looking, I called him to come back home after we noticed that she was not at work, and he started helping us look as well.
You mentioned earlier money was going into Allie's bank account. She was saving it up. Has there, to this date, been any use on that account, her trying to get that money out, or anyone else trying to get that money out?
No, there's been no activity. As a matter of fact, her purse with her wallet with $40 cash in it was left in her bedroom.
That purse with the $40 in it, was that something she had in school that day?
No.
Okay, it's something she would have taken to school. Was there anything that was missing that you know of from her bedroom that she might have taken with her?
No, just her school stuff. She had a checkered backpack, a multicolored checkered backpack that she used in school. But she didn't use it also as a purse. She had a separate purse. So anything that she needed for school, she would put in her backpack. And otherwise, when she wasn't in school, she had her purse.
Very, very frustrating. It seems, she's making plans to hang out with someone that night. She's got money that hasn't been touched. It doesn't seem like she, if she was going to run away, she would have taken belongings, taken money, that kind of thing, and not made plans with someone for that very night to hang out. So it's very concerning, and it seems that it could have all happened in that quarter-mile walk. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but based on what you know, based on everything you've learned and heard, do you have a theory on what happened to Allie?
Well, just my theory. And it varies. It just depends on, I guess, different things going on with the investigation. But, I know somebody took her. Whether it was somebody that she knew and she went willingly, that's a very good possibility. But we have no idea who. Or, just a straight up abduction. But, it happens so rare. And, and that's another thing, that there's absolutely no witnesses anything. That's another reason why we didn't get an Amber Alert. But, all we know is that, she was taken by somebody. And after that, I have no clue. We haven't found a body, so, that gives me some hope, that she's still out there somewhere. But I just know in my heart that if she was able to, she would have reached out to us already.
So where does the investigation as a whole stand now? You mentioned earlier, I think you used the word sitting on a shelf. Do you think that's still the status of it now?
Definitely. I couldn't tell you the last time that somebody from the homicide department reached out to me. We basically do our own investigation now. We got tired of feeding them, all this information, hoping that they would put something together, and then them not giving us any feedback at all. It's very disappointing.
Well, we'll definitely do our part to help spread the word about the case and that it's still unsolved, and help you, be a voice for Allie. Do you have any kind of social media or website pages or anything that you'd like to put out there that we can tell people about?
Sure. I do have a website. It's Allie's name spelled out, so it's AlexandriaLowitzer.com. And the Facebook page that we run for her is called Hope for Allie. And I try to advocate for other missing persons as well. So I share a lot of other flyers and posts about other missing people. Anytime I do an event or I do Facebook Lives, and stuff like that, then I post on her Facebook page.
And hopefully if there's anyone out there listening that has information, they'll contact you through the website, and, whether it's a small tip or something they think is not important, maybe it's something it'll make sense to you and you can pass it on. It's been over a decade without your daughter. So, hoping for your sake that you can get the answers that you've been looking for so long.
Thank you. We continue every time somebody contacts us with, the least bit of information. We always, take it seriously. It's still a pretty active case, as far as we're concerned. We still get people, giving us information, but most of the time it's for a girl that just looks like Allie.
And you never know, there might have been someone that's listening that thinks, hey, I thought that case was solved. And maybe they have information that they didn't think was even useful. Or someone was afraid to talk because they were threatened by someone 10 years ago. Situations change, so maybe just getting the word out there that, hey, this case still needs resolution, maybe will inspire someone to talk and come forward.
That's what we hope for.
Well, again, Joanne, I can't thank you enough for joining us to talk about Allie's case. And, once again, I hope you get some kind of answers.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, we hope that you'll contact the appropriate authorities.
We hope that you'll tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will really help us grow. And if you'd like to help us reach new listeners, please be sure to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get ad-free early access to every new episode of Missing Persons, as well as any bonus content.
Your Patreon support also goes directly towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with two worthwhile causes that benefit the efforts to bring missing people home: CharlieProject.org and Private Investigations for the Missing. Your Patreon support will really go a long way towards helping. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder, new episodes of Missing Persons drop every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can always find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. As we wrap up this episode, I'd like to play a preview for a new true crime podcast that I think you'll really enjoy. It's called Criminality, and it's hosted by my friends Melissa from the Moms and Murder podcast and Rebecca from Dialogue. So be sure to give it a listen. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
Hey guys, Melissa from Moms and Murder here, inviting you to check out my new show, Criminality, where I'll be taking a look at crime and reality TV with my co-host, Rebecca Sebastian.
Hi friends, I'm Rebecca, host of Dialogue, a true crime conversation.
Face it, we all love to hate reality TV because what's better than escaping your dumpster fire of a life than watching someone else's? Join us as we discuss everything from a teen mom with feathers in her hair to a 90-day fiance who enjoys a box of matches, and we may just call Nancy Joe while wearing our best pair of little brown BB shoes that only cost $29.
And we can't forget the true crimes of the Real Housewives. Guys, they all have mugshots. That's where I'll be lending my expertise. We'll break it all down for you every other Friday beginning February 12th, 2021.
So go to criminalityshow.com and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Criminality, because loving reality isn't a crime.
Missing Persons is produced under the name AbJack Entertainment by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt. It's hosted by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt, with writing and research by Jessica Betancourt and editing by Mike Morford. Be sure to listen every other Saturday for an all-new episode of Missing Persons.